Reddit, what is your most horrifying I thought no one was looking moment? When I was 6 I had to go to the bathroom pretty bad and my father used to pee in the backyard all the time, so I ran out into the back as quickly as possible and for some reason, don't ask why, I completely removed my clothing and proceeded to pee on our oak tree, and out of nowhere I crapped my pants, shat myself. My parents and 3 of their friends, who were enjoying their drinks, saw the whole thing. Well, mine wasn't that nobody was looking, but that the wrong person was looking. Freshman year in college I was in the dorms and I had a pretty goofy relationship with my roommate at the time. I heard his key into the door, so I decided to do something funny, so I stood up in the center of our room and shoved my hand in my pants and began to furiously mime masturbate. I closed my eyes, headbanged, and waved my other hand wildly in the air. I heard the door swing open and I just went for it, shaking my head and both my arms in exaggerated fashions. When I opened my eyes to see his expression, I realized I was staring into the eyes of my roommate's father, whom I had not met yet. He was helping my roommate carry some groceries in from the car. TLDR. My freshman college roommate's dad walked in on my fake masturbating wildly in the center of the room. It was the first time we had met. At the Mall of America, walking around the upper level balcony, when the floor starts shaking a bit, I mutter out loud, "Holy crap, was that an earthquake?" I turned around and there was a morbidly obese woman walking right past me. Oh my god, I hope she didn't hear. Those balconies are very bouncy, to be fair. I was at the Metrodome for a Twins game. I developed a severe case of itch butt and it soon became clear that a booster wipe was imperative. Left the game and stood in the long line for stalls. When it was finally my turn, the large, handicapped stall with the double wide door was the one available. When I got in, I had some difficulty with the broken locking mechanism, but soon got it to seemingly latch. I then went to town on my itchy butt, facing the toilet so it would seem like I was taking a leak. I wiped once, and again, and a third time until it came back white. I threw the final tissue in the toilet, pulled up my pants, zipped and flushed, finally turning around to leave the stall, only to see 20 plus very uncomfortable looking men doing their best to avoid any eye contact with me. The stall door had silently swung wide open behind me, my shame laid bare for all the world to see. I wanted to make a beeline from the bathroom, but in light of what I had just been doing, and the fact that everyone knew it, that just wasn't an option. So, head down, I darted to the sink, washed my hands and got the heck out of there as quickly as possible. I have never been so simultaneously embarrassed and amused at the same time. Despite my mortification, it was just too funny for me not to share. I bring down the house every time I tell this story. I'm sorry you were in the Metrodome. Walking home after working closing shift at Wendy's, my bowels suddenly went into watery feeling red alert mode. Still 3 blocks away from home, 4 blocks away from any public restrooms, I glanced around frantically and spotted a house across the street with tall boxwood bushes surrounding it. Streetlights didn't reach it, target acquired. Sprinted over, yanked down pants and squatted behind the nearest bush. Then with a hearty hi yo, SylvHNNNNGH blasted my employee meal all over the wall, ground, bush, pants, underwear and shoes. With a heartfelt frick, I gingerly tried to scramble out of my soiled clothing, only to trip helplessly into the crap-soaked bush as my, understandably unremoved, equally beshitted shoes snagged in my pants legs. I laid in the now crushed bush, cursing quietly for a moment, didn't want to disturb the residents, then managed to kick off the shoes and remove the pants and underwear without getting much further soiled. The underwear was ruined, but the pants, with a little work, could pass for okay in the dark, until I got home, crouching behind that bush, bitterly enjoying the cool breeze on my butt and junk. I scrubbed the soiled parts of the pants in the grass, used my shirt to clean myself. I always took off the employee shirt after work, thank God, as best I could, shoved the underwear and shirt as far into the bush as I could to hide them, then stood up to inspect myself, ready to make a quick dash for home. The sound of 3 startled screeches rang out into the neighborhood, as I suddenly popped up facing the house. directly in front of what I guess was a bedroom window, where both the husband and wife, in bedclothes, were staring in disbelief not 6 inches from my nose. I convulsively jerked back, again falling into that freaking bush, sliding off of it to the other side on my back, scratching the living heck out of myself. Boxwoods are tough. Flopped like a fish in agony for a few moments eternity, then finally managed to stagger to my feet and bound drunkenly away, shoes forgotten, one arm clawing at my back trying to feel if I'd actually impaled myself on that bush or not. Not my proudest moment. TLDR. Forced to take horrific crap under bedroom window, thoroughly humiliated by a bush, observed for unknown time by occupants of house. I wasn't drunk. This is the best story so far. I busted a huge gut. Thank you. When I first started working in Nick, I lived on Long Island and had nearly a 2-hour door-to-door commute via the Long Island Railroad. One night on a later train I managed to grab a great seat only to have them pull the train out of services and ask that we switch to a new train. For those that don't know, this is BS because now all the people that were late and forced to stand have the advantage of exiting first and getting to the new train for a seat. I got off and knew I had no shot at a seat as I was behind hundreds of people going up the escalator. Noticed that the down escalator was totally empty and decided to go for it. Ran my butt off to get to the top. Took my final leap and came up short. Hit the deck flat on my face. Humiliated. I got back up and ran to the train. Got myself a seat too. TLDR. Don't go up the down escalator unless you're willing to pay the price. Practice makes perfect. You have to keep trying. Sophomore year of college I was on the rowing team. The weather wasn't yet warm enough to be on the water so we were inside on the UGS rowing machines. We had some hard workout. I can't quite remember what, but it was an interval workout with 3 minutes on and 2 minutes off for 25 minutes or something along those lines. The point is that it was intense. More intense than normal. The intenseness of the workout was making me have to fart, but the constant use of my leg butt abdominal muscles prevented me from letting them out. So after the 25 minutes we had a 5-minute break before the next 25-minute piece and I go over to the water fountain to get a drink. I had my music blasting and was exhausted, so I didn't really notice my surroundings at all. I just took a quick glance around before bending down to drink. While I was drinking, all the gas that had built up came to a head and was ready to burst. Still bent over and drinking, I let it rip. I swear, it was the largest volume fart I had ever expelled in my entire life and I have still yet to top it. The force of my butt cheeks vibrating was violent enough to the point that it made my butt sore afterwards. It was a full second. Seriously, say 1001. That's how long of absolute maximum flatulent thrust. It felt like I had expelled my entire lung capacity out of my anus. Feeling rather pleased with myself, I stood up and turned to go back to the UGS. To my horror, standing directly behind me, seriously not more than a foot from my butt, was a girl waiting to drink. She didn't look up, she didn't move in any way, and her facial expression was completely frozen with her mouth wide open, eyes staring at where my butt had been. I quickly shuffled away and looked behind me after walking about 50 feet and she still hadn't moved. I spent the rest of the next piece bursting into random fits of giggles. It became a bit of a team joke. To this day I will sometimes think about it and burst out laughing. I also giggle at the fact that she may have seen who I was before standing behind me and every time she sees me on campus all she can think about is that one scarring moment in her life. TLDR. Ripped an enormous fart when I was drinking at a water fountain, not knowing anybody was behind me. Girl frozen and look of terror. I don't know if I should just beat off and go to sleep or actually try to sleep with her to my dog while taking him on a walk, as the neighbor stood hidden behind a tree, within earshot. Go for it, dude. I went to college about 4 hours from home. I was coming home for spring break one year. The Rents live in a rural area, and about the last 45 minutes of the trip, there was no place to stop and take a bio break. I didn't have to go at the last opportunity, so I drove right on by. I was about 20 minutes from home, and felt the turd drop into the chamber. This wasn't a rah-rah raggy moment right away. I felt I could hold it until I got home. It would only be about 20 more minutes. All was well, and as I approached home I think the psychological fact of yes, I made it, set in, and the last mile of my trip was sheer panic. But alas, this is not a tale of me crapping myself. This is a tale of not expecting anyone to be home. I made it in the front door, and as I was clinching the Bombay doors tightly, I started singing a little tune to take my mind off the torpedo that was good to go and ready to launch. Gonna crap in my pants. Gonna crap in my pants. Gonna crap in my pants, over and over again. Walked into the kitchen and saw one of my mom's best friends who was there for a visit. Unbeknownst to me, mom was at work. Horrified, I immediately changed my tune and played it off like I was just lazily singing some random tune. SHHH, 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 da-dum-da-doo-doo. Poker faced it and went right for the shitter. I think she figured it out. 2nd grade, I was asked to deliver something to the main office. I was so excited that I got chosen that I forgot that the door to the classroom was right at the end of the hall I was about to go down. The whole class watched me skip all the way down the hall. The sound of laughter echoing down the hall and the crippling embarrassment still haunt me, nearly 20 years later. Skipping is a more efficient and stylish way of traveling. There should be no shame. Listening to music in my car. Awesome song comes on. For a second, I think I'm a rock star and bob my head up and down with that I'm so hardcore face. I do it all the time. I can't help it. I'm at a light, and I look over, and my ex is next to me with his new GF. They both start laughing and waving, and while they were still watching, I accidentally spit my own gum down my shirt. I cannot look him in the face when I run into him, live in a smallish town, and see him all the time. I was about 13 and watching a Marilyn Monroe movie, and she was doing this hot striptease, so I thought why not and started fapping. Now I thought I was alone in an upstairs bedroom, so I finish, and then notice there's a guy in the window smiling at me. I forgot they were painting the house. Later my sister said to me, "So, you really like Marilyn Monroe, huh?" Jesus Christ. I managed to forget this for 19 years, and now here we are. I was like 6, and my family had just gotten a cat. He licked himself all over, all the time, because that's what cats do. Not understanding the purpose, I figured there had to be something awesome about licking a cat. So I was sitting there looking at the cat, just licking the frick away. My sister is across the room but otherwise occupied. Curiosity getting the better of me. I lean over and lick my cat. For the record, he tasted like a cat. So as I contemplating the cattiness, I hear from across the room, "Did you just lick the cat?" Yes. Sister was disappointed. This is one of the best stories I've read in a long time. Couldn't stop laughing. It's hilarious. I used to sketch customers at work when they were taking forever to order at just staring at the menu. Often, I'd accentuate undesirable features because I freaking hate most of our customers. I stopped doing this when a lady came up to the counter and leaned over it, asking what are you drawing. It got awkward. No one noticed before her though. I used to work at a Starbucks. We had this massive pair of tons used for pulling paninis out of the oven. One closing shift, I had the brilliant idea of mimicking Pac-Man. I then proceeded to clap said tongs in front of my face while chanting wacka 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 and walking out onto what either was a completely empty sales floor. I was greeted by all the members of my new boyfriend's family. I froze. They were blankly staring at me. Awesome first impression. Oh god, here goes. 2-part story starts with a whole day trip with my dad and a couple of his friends. After eating a couple of burgers my dad made, I got a massive case of diarrhea. I went into the woods to hide in a couple of trees. No biggie, I thought, after evacuating an ungodly amount of crap. Later that day on the ride home it happens again. Holy butt juice. My insides are turning. I'm trying to concentrate. It's 15 more minutes to home. We finally make it, and as I take that final leap out of the car I accidentally shat myself by in front of all my dad's friends. They, being the outstanding gentlemen that they were, decided to go get a couple of beers while I sorted my crap covered self out. So here I am taking a shower to get clean myself after the horrible incident and start to sing in the shower. I'm singing the Rocky Them at full power. Turantan. Finish my shower and say frickin' no one's home. So I walk out naked while doing the Rocky theme and air punching like there is no tomorrow. Walk across the living room when I feel a presence. My dad and all his friends staring at me. WTF faces all around. Not a proud moment. TL. DR. Shat myself, then got caught air punching to the Rocky theme naked. First half, embarrassing. Second half, awesome. In college I lived with 2 roommates in second year. One weekend they both went away back to their hometowns. So I thought it was the perfect opportunity to have my then girlfriend over for some fun steam times without volume restraint. Saturday morning we got her at a game right after getting up, and afterwards I excused myself, bare butt naked, to go get us some water. I walked out of my room and to the end of the bedroom hallway. When I opened my door, one of my roommates was standing there, about to light a cigarette. Inside, strictly fair bottle amongst us. We both just froze. We were staring at each other, me butt naked, him with a cigarette hanging from his mouth, a lit match burning in his hand right next to the cigarette. I wheeled around after what seemed like forever and walked back into the bedroom where I fell over laughing. If only you had posted this earlier, the karma gods would have smiled upon you. More something I said. I was walking down the hallway at my school. I proceeded to walk up the stairs and with my arm full of books. For some reason I thought my body could handle the simple task of stairs, considering I had been on them my entire life. I was wrong of course, and my left foot caught on the staircase. I collapsed to the ground, face planting into a stair. My books exploded and scattered everywhere. I just looked up and screamed Quran, then saw an elderly professor staring down at me. He made a remark about noise in the hallway and smirked. Wrinkly bastard didn't even help me. A few years ago, I was walking through Walmart with my dad. We were just going in to get something real quick. I was wearing a low-cut shirt, relevant. My dad and I were talking about funny walks people do, and I started in on this long stride, fast-paced walk. Well, my boobs popped out of my shirt. I got them back inside real quick and looked around. At first I didn't see anyone notice, then looked ahead and there was a guy walking towards us. I'm absolutely sure he saw, though he sported a pretty good poker face. Bet that wasn't all he was sporting. When I was a teenager and my parents were away for the weekend, I decided that it would of course be the perfect opportunity for a self-pleasure extravaganza. I got hold of some pee and set myself up nicely in the living room with the normal accoutrements. After having a great first fap, I was ready for another go. Cue furious and almost violent tugging, legs akimbo, some really uninhibited crap. And then, on looking slightly to the right of the TV, I see movement in the door. After quickly putting my junk away and muting the various moans coming from the TV, I spring to my feet and cautiously make my way to the door in time to glimpse the fleeing back of what appears to be a young child exiting our driveway. I believe they may have been selling chocolates or some other school fundraising effort. Since then I have been sure to keep my fapping within reasonable limits and out of public view. A couple years ago I was dating this guy that I had met on the internet who lived 5 hours away. We didn't get to see each other often, so we would webcam during periods we couldn't be together. I had a roommate at the time and she had just left for work while I was on webcam with him. For some reason my ex and I always turned on songs and would groove to them while on cam. So on this particular day I turned on Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. I ended up taking my shirt off and dancing around my room, swinging my shirt around. Suddenly I hear my roommate laughing her butt off because she had come back home to get her name tag. Now anytime that song comes on she says, "Please leave your shirt on." I was the someone who was looking. Once, there is an ice cream shop down the road from my place. The girlfriend and I were walking past and I noticed that there were no customers inside, and the lone employee, a teenage guy, was inside balancing his baseball cap by its visor on his chin. I stopped and pointed it out to my girlfriend and we watched through the window as he successfully balanced it for another 2 minutes. When it finally fell, he turned and noticed us golf clapping for him in the street and he turned bright red. I think he was really embarrassed, but he shouldn't have been. It was awesome. I'm not sure why I love this so much, but it's amazing. Not so much of not looking. More than didn't know someone was there. I was about 8/9 year and during class I had to go to the toilet. Our school had an outside toilet block completely made of bricks and concrete where there were just a line of larger decorative bricks that had patterns but were open so you could look through them. They were up pretty high for an 8-year and they were above the urinal wall. So I'm in there on my own and decide I'll have a go at pee through the bricks. I got a great art going and I did it. Straight onto the principal's head. TLDR. Pee through window onto principal's head who was walking outside the toilets. I am curious to hear as to how this turned out. My office has really tinted windows, and one time I opened up the blinds and saw a big fat lady pressed up next to the glass, picking food out of her teeth in the window's reflection. It was really gross, and she never saw me. I just closed the blinds again lol. Should have knocked. I have this weird condition where I suddenly yell out random things when I think no one is looking. It is not a tic, as I obviously have full control of it and do not feel particularly compelled to yell out things if it is near people. But whenever I'm alone in the car, walking someplace, etc., I sometimes yell random stuff really loudly. I have always been this way. I interned at a hedge fund last summer. The company was located on the second floor of a building that had an unoccupied first floor. Every floor had a really nice restroom, but I quickly found out that there was an unmarked door that led to a restroom with a lot of stalls on the first floor that no one went to. I used to take great pleasure in taking long, luxurious shoots down there, and whenever I walked into the secret restroom of joy, I would yell out, "Captain Shitstorm reporting for duty," and proceed to take an amazing crap. Well, one day, as I yelled those words and walked in, I saw a pair of women's legs in one of the stalls in the restroom that I thought no one knew about but me. It turns out that all the female interns from my hedge fund, only a handful, and very attractive, went down there to take care of their business, and that was the second time one of them heard my pre-crap yelling ritual. It was probably the most awkward and cringe-worthy day of my life. I find it somewhat remarkable that this isn't the first I yell things in public restrooms and I'm surprised to get caught reply. Reddit, you freaky. I'm sure everyone has done this before, but when I was like 10 years old I was at a ranch out in the woods. Basically a resort in the woods, but it was small. Either way, everyone would eat at the same time, then we would all go and play by the pool or campfire. There were about 50 of us. Well, one night after dinner 10-year-old me went up exploring and went up to the dining room. I was completely alone and I had to fart, so I decided I would glorify it. I kid you not. I stood up on a chair, lifted my leg to as much of a 90-degree angle I could make, and let it fly. I turn around and there's two of the table washers just staring at me. I turned a red that matched the color of their cleaning bucket. Happened on day 2 of 7. I stayed by the campfire from then on. Also, that moment when I found out they actually watch you in dressing rooms. Every time I've picked my nose, ever. I was in my suite blasting Taylor Swift and singing along while I was doing the dishes. Apparently my Ra and a couple of her friends were at my door, watching and trying not to laugh. They lost it when Bieber came on. Later, she told me that she never saw anyone turn so red in her entire life. When I was about 8, I was playing outfield for a friend's baseball practice. At that age no one hits it into outfield, so it was unfathomably boring. So I started acting like I was in the major leagues and I had just caught the game-winning catch of the World Series. Unbeknownst to me, the entire team and parents were watching me make leaping saves of nothing and thought I had been stung by a bee. Didn't think no one was looking, but Miss Judge, who was looking, was filming in a building downtown. Our site rep for the building was kind of a nut job. We had to use a regular passenger elevator for moving equipment up because the cargo elevator was being serviced that morning. On one of my buddy's trips up to the set, we were dressing, the elevator doors opened up to the site rep doing bad karate moves towards him as a joke. A really weird joke that lasted a good 10 awkward seconds for my buddy. Anyway, that became the joke of the day. Anytime the door would open, one of us would be waiting there doing bad karate moves towards each other. On one of my trips back to the truck, I see the cargo elevator moving and 2 sets of legs along with it. Figuring it had been repaired, and my two buddies were riding it down. I immediately went into exaggerated karate mode. It was then I realized that it was not, in fact, my two pals who I had been sharing the joke with all day, but the two elevator repair guys testing the cargo elevator. They looked extremely confused as to why I was practicing karate moves in front of a cargo elevator alone while staring at them. I didn't say a word, stopped, turned and walked away. I was at the gym, on a cross trainer, and grabbed my water to take a glug. As I lifted it up to my mouth, still running, my elbow stuck out and got smacked by one of the handbars that was still going back and forth. The water leapt out of that bottle like a mother and literally soaked me. Looked round slowly in that hope no one saw that way, and to my dismay, there was an assistant showing about 20 people round on an induction 2 meters behind me. Embarrassing. I work in a 20-story building with about 12 elevators in it. For the first 6 months or so, if I was in an empty elevator, I was doing one of 4 things: talking to myself, making stupid faces in the mirror, picking a wedgie, or God forbid, scratching one of many awkward places. A security guard that I had chatted with on multiple occasions called me over to the monitoring desk to show me something his daughter had bought him. I looked at the screens and to my horror, saw all of the elevators. I wondered how often these people had seen me come in and out and knew I was a complete wacko. How do you not realize that elevators have cameras in them and are monitored in almost all buildings? Once in my old dorm at uni, I let rip a 10-second fart while I thought my roommate was still asleep. He didn't say a word. He just reached over to his bedside table, picked up a can of Febreze, sprayed it in my direction for what felt like a long time, and then turned over. Took a crap in the bathroom in a school building I was studying in at 2 AM. I felt a bit frisky and debated whether I should do it. I thought aloud in a hymn. Oh sensation, sensation, does thou dare aboard the masturbation station? Abuse creation only for your elation. I say this a lot when I think I am by myself and I am getting ready to jerk. After a few seconds I started jerking, screaming, I am Adolf Hitler. That's when I heard a toilet flush a few stalls down. I subsequently slapped myself in the face out of shame of my craziness. I bet that guy was freaking terrified. Growing up, my friends and I used to play ghetto baseball, wiffle ball, bat stuffed W newspaper and duct taped in a tennis ball, in the common grassy area by my friends' houses. Being around 13 years old and no washroom around, I used to pee in these bushes that were next to a house where this mean lady lived. No issues WE. This lady sucked anyway, frick her bushes. I moved to a neighboring town and now I'm in HS where I meet this girl at a party and we start dating. I get invited for dinner at her house and of course it's the house that I used to pee on where the old lady lived. I laugh to myself and go inside to meet the family over dinner. In the middle of dinner the older sister goes, "Holy crap, I knew you looked familiar." I stopped chewing, thinking WTF, you're the kid that used to pee in our bushes all the time, hahaha. I sat there poker faced thinking no freaking way. They didn't live there when I did this. But how? Wait, number. How could she possibly know? Then my own freaking GF chimes in, OMG cunty older sister. You're right. He is. We have just lost cabin pressure. Apparently the old lady moved or died or something and unknowingly to me, my now GF's family had moved in. At this point I'm about to just excuse myself and go die under a rock somewhere, when her ultra cool father steps in and while laughing says, "Well tonight son you don't have to use the bushes. We have several bathrooms for you to choose from." Dinner was still a little awkward, but I survived and was invited back. Of course I would get a good ribbing every time I would use the restroom, but I went with it BC I was fricking their daughter. TLDR. My HSGF and her older sister used to watch me pee in their bushes when I was younger and played baseball by their house, then called me out on it at the dinner table with her parents there. I tried to light a cop car on fire during a hockey riot. Then I turned around and everyone else was rioting too. It was so crazy. Lying on my bed, jerking off, my dad was using the shower in the spare room, which is nearly right across the hall. The perfect angle. I had no idea anyone was upstairs, so when he got out there was a surprise for him. Needless to say, we didn't talk for a few days after that. Level 100 creepy as frick. I'm pretty sure my father-in-law spotted me making the blowjob mouth hand gesture at his mother's wake. I was goofing off with a friend of my wife's and I looked to my right only to see him looking, I think, at me from the other room across the hall. Tried to play it off as if I was doing something else with my hand and tongue. It's never been mentioned but still flips my stomach when I think about it. Looking at our volleyball generals at my new job. Till our volleyball generals exists, no more searching Yahoo News photos for my fix. I live in Sweden, and we do have snow in the winter as you know. A couple of years ago when I was living at my parents', I had my own little cabin, with no toilet. Anyway, since I couldn't really go anywhere without plowing snow I just opened the door, stood there on my little porch with my dong over the railing and peed. I used to do this for quite some time, until my neighbor walks by and sees me standing there naked with my penis over the railing, kinda bending backwards. What are you gonna do? She's already seen me. She walked by and stared at me. Also when I got aware of this I think my neighbor saw me a couple of times. They had a house like 3 houses from ours, with a window upstairs towards my cabin. They must have. Suadu. I was taking out the trash, having to make runs back and forth. The third and final run I made I found I'd dropped a couple cans on the floor. Instead of taking them to the front, said, "Oh shit," in a Scottish accent. I am not Scottish. Ag fuck it, I'll just put it back. No one will know. And I put it back in the closet that we store the rubbish. Closing the door, I noticed my girlfriend standing there, laughing her butt off that I talk to myself in Scottish sometimes when no one is around. Yee. A couple years ago at Burning Man, while running around one night wearing a pink bodysuit, knee-high boots, and giant afro wig, I decided to eat some ecstasy. The pill kicked in as I was walking back into camp and I thought it'd be funny if I let out a fart in front of a few of my campmates. Now, ecstasy is a stimulant, which therefore loosens everything up inside you, so I wind up not just farting, but also blowing a considerable load of shiza into my jumpsuit. I'm like, well, frick. So I grab a beer and a flashlight and do that awful waddle walk a couple hundred yards down to the porta potties to go try to remedy the situation. I sit down in the porta potty, put my beer on the toilet paper dispenser, pull down the jumpsuit, assess the damage, and luckily, the poo has all been more or less contained within the leg bands of my briefs. But in order to get them off, I'm going to have to untie my giant knee-high boots and pull the whole jumpsuit off, in the tight constraints of the porta potty, in the dark, while high. This does not sound appealing to me, so I decide I'm going to rip my underwear off. So I start tugging at the waistband, trying to tear it. Mother s not tearing. So I find a clean spot on it, lean way down, and start trying to gnaw through the waistband of my underwear. And just then, the door opens, and there's this girl outside shining a headlamp into the porta potty, and sees this unholy freaking sight before her. She screams out this slams the door, causing the beer to fall off the toilet paper dispenser and spill into my wig. And from outside, she's still screaming and I can hear some girl with her saying, "What is it? What's in their headlamp?" Girl is shrieking, "I don't know. I don't. It was a while before I came out of that porta potty. I think some integral part of my being might still in there. TLDR. Shat jumpsuit while high on drugs at festival. Went to porta potty. Tried to gnaw through underwear to avoid having to remove hard to get off outfit. Was walked in on by woman who responded with unrestrained horror. After an entire night and morning of drinking at the local bars and finally at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Tampa, I pee on the wall on the side of an office building while waiting for a friend to pick us up. I didn't realize it until I'd gone by the place later, but it was a glass wall and behind that wall was a room full of people. When I was in middle school, we were watching a movie in one of my music classes. I felt one of those pokey boogers in my nose, so I figured it was dark and I could get it out real quick and call it good. Nope. It turned into one of those pokey ones with a giant, gooey hang-on at the end. Pulled it out, landed on my face. I quickly tried to wipe it onto my sleeve and then run to the bathroom, but when I look up, the chubby Asian kid, Tony, was staring at me, jaw dropped. I'll never forget it, even if it was over a decade ago. Lol. The scene, a somewhat crowded shopping center. Her, a gorgeous and extremely fit young lady is walking in front of me and my friend, us. Two extremely frisky Iranian boys. There is a reason there is a stereotype that we are sleazy club owners. What happened? My friend turns to me and in Farsi begins to outline and disgustingly vulgar detail all the things he wants to do to her. Even for someone who lives in my level of deprivation, it was a truly incredible bacchanalian description. Not to be outdone, I begin to outline my own plan for this attractive young lady and in turn create a physical scenario that would make the Marquis de Sade blush. Just as I finish, this amazing looking girl turns around and begins to lambaste us in perfect Farsi. Not only had she heard what she had said, but she proceeded to tell us why she would never engage in anything with two pathetic, desperate and creepy looking Iranian guys who would stalk behind her. It was a humbling experience that led to significant self-betterment in the long term. TLDR. Made vulgar remarks about a hot girl in Farsi. She spoke perfect Farsi and humiliated me. I thought no one was around, so I ripped a huge fart. I turned around only to see a girl look at me in disgust. I had my headphones in once and I thought I was alone. I farted probably the loudest fart I've ever had in my life. It was a long one too. About a minute later I turn around and see my roommate lying in bed, staring at me. It's worse because we weren't friends. She hated me. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.